I love this. MLS. Well, and you've just got notice that you're being recorded. Liz, I love your title, MLS and Innovative Chief at Miami Association. What a cool title to have. The Miami Association is the largest realtor association in the nation. And you are spending your time in enhancing leading edge member services offerings. Liz, can you tell us a little bit about exactly, I don't want to read this. Tell us a little bit, tell us a little bit about what's the most interesting thing you're doing right now.
Oh, wow. So right now, I am totally immersed in our upcoming Rock the Market event. So we haven't been able to do that since 2019 because it is such a high energy event. We knew it wouldn't translate to that online presence. So we've done a lot of great webinars, but Rock the Market is a full day event. We'll have about 1,800 people there at the Hard Rock Hotel in Miami. The event is already sold out, and it's been sold out for 2 weeks already, and it's still 2 more weeks away. We've got amazing speakers coming in. We're hosting our first ever pitch battle, and we've got these. So what I do a lot is companies come to me and they say, hey, how can we work with MLSs? And there are a lot of great MLSs around the country that do bring in new tech and new ideas all the time. But what's special about Miami is we don't have any committees. So we have the trust of our board, and we're able to move so quickly to onboard new tech and leading edge tech. And do it with a really light hand, but help these new ideas even come in as brand new products in the industry. They've never existed before, and that we're able to launch them with the largest local realtor association and one of the largest MLSs in the country. That's what's so special for me, because we've got a huge data set. We have a really diverse market. We do everything in English and Spanish. Our members do everything from, efficiency rentals to $50 million homes on Fisher Island and everything in between. So we're very not one size fits all, but we're the association of choice, right? We want people to choose to be with us and have all the products that they need to choose. So I work with these companies, and when they come to me, we get them up and running, and we've got all these super exciting launches that we're doing. So right now, doing a lot of coaching to get those launches just over the finish line, and for them to have the best pitches when they get on stage in front of 1,800 people at the Hard Rock Hotel on the 29th.
What's the coolest thing you've seen lately?
So there's a new product. It's going to be launching in Miami soon for our members, but right now it is in a soft launch. It's called Foye, Foiye. And it is, everybody loves HGTV, right? Everybody loves Love It or List It, or, Find My Beach Condo, or whatever you want to pick. But what those aren't is super interactive, and this is interactive. So it's all of that, except you get to interact and, search for properties, work with realtors, work with designers, work with furniture places, all of those types of things. And it's completely immersive in a website and in an app, but it's also high end media. And it's coming from people who have worked at HBO and Warner Brothers and places like that. So that's going to be an awesome launch that we're doing really soon. And I have not seen anything like it that's coming out in the industry today.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. Kim, you have an interesting job. So thank you for sharing that. If what I'm going to say is, Liz, you're up. Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and what it's doing to real estate today, because it's doing a lot of interesting things these days. You're up.
Okay, thank you so much. So thank you, Deborah, for that amazing introduction. Thank you to everybody who has joined us this morning on a rainy Friday morning in Chicago. My name is Liz Sturrock. So I work for the Miami Association of Realtors, but I am a lifelong 4th generation Chicagoan. I grew up on the south side of the city and live on the northwest side in Old Irving Park, and I am a remote employee for Miami. So I do go down there quite a bit. Before I was with Miami, I was with NAR for 11 years. And so we've been looking at blockchain as a technology to use within real estate, even back when I was at NAR. Obviously, it's in the news a lot today. My slides, I update them all the time. Things change so quickly. There are companies in here that have filed for bankruptcy in the last 48 hours. So I just want you to be aware of that. The industry moves so fast. So today what I'm going to do is give you some foundational information, some real takeaways, but please know and keep in mind that the information moves so quickly that you just really need to be aware. And if this is something that you want to add to your business, this is not a one and done, right? It's just like the internet. You can't just learn the internet and you know it forever. It's an evolving technology. There are new players all the time, and we've seen good players become bad players, and things like that. I am part of the NAR cryptocurrency presidential advisory group. So NAR is actively working on this and working on becoming, they're already a resource, but we're hoping they become a much better resource with more up-to-date information, because, you know, just like the news, once you put it on paper, it's already started to age out. The chat is closed. Any questions, please post them to the Q&A. I will address them. I'll take a couple breaks and look through that as well. We have an hour. I will make sure that there's time for questions at the end. And I also just asked for your kindness and patience. I am on my 12th day of COVID and still testing positive, but this is so important that I absolutely did not want to postpone or cancel this. So with that, let's get right into it. So I like to start with this kind of metaphor, right? I'm a Girl Scout. I'm sure that maybe there's another Girl Scout that's on here, and we're believers in always being prepared. So, you know, you get your first pocket knife and it's got a couple tools in it, and you know how all of them work. These are all things that you'll absolutely use. Then down the line, you get this and you go, oh my God, like, I don't know what a third of these are. I'm never going to use them, but maybe I'm going to need them. But what I can do is find somebody who knows how this works and find a partner and make sure I have these tools available to me and can work with somebody to make this happen. So, because as realtors, right, we're all scouts. We all want to be prepared. We all want to do the right thing for our consumers. And we always want to be able to answer the question. So even if you don't know the answer, you want to find somebody to work with who can help you do that and help you use these tools. And cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and blockchain are just new tools that have come out, just like other new tools have come out in real estate. So, you know, this has been happening now for years, right? Transactions have been going on for a while. The first one was in 2014. A house was sold in 2017. And these were full crypto transactions where people paid for this with cryptocurrency, whether it was Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. It is continuing to grow. There's a lot of money out there, and that is why you should care. So the market cap, right? So the total amount of money of Bitcoin alone in April was $760 billion. That's real money. Now, it has dropped 50% since April. And we're going to talk about that a little bit, but that still means that there is $375 billion in Bitcoin and probably over $1 trillion in crypto. That's, again, that's real money that people want to be able to use and want to be able to use it to buy the most expensive asset that they've ever had. So again, so just another company, Kai's company, big one in Miami and South Florida, 2018, they sold a house for 41 Bitcoin. So we're going to talk today about a little bit about how it works, a little bit of the history, and then we're going to really focus on applications, risks and risk mitigation, and some tools that are available to you to help you get through a transaction, or at least to refer people to work with. So we're going to start with blockchain versus cryptocurrency. Blockchain, everybody talks about it. They say, oh, it's a panacea. You got to use it for everything. Blockchain is nothing more than a database. It's no different than fundamentally, there's lots more to it, but fundamentally it's no different than Oracle, than SQL, than Microsoft Access. What makes blockchain unique is that it is what's called immutable. So once something is written to a blockchain and a block in a database, it cannot be changed. So let me say that again, it cannot be changed. Now you'd say, well, what if somebody makes a mistake or data changes all the time? Well, that's fine. Another block is written with the change, but the original piece is not there. And you may think in other databases that is always stored, what is called a field record or metadata. It is not always held because other technologies don't require it. So it's very important to understand that that is the benefit of blockchain. The other thing that's important is that it's distributed. So what we would do is, you know, if I have a node on the blockchain, Deborah has a node on the blockchain, Jeff has a node on the blockchain. We are all interconnected, and then we have an agreement and share that information. And we can do it in a public way where anybody can join, or we can do it in a private way where only we share it. But then if a node is lost, we have the rest of them to help keep it up as well. And so that way we have a visibility into each other's information. And when you start talking about things like banking and making sure that people have funds that we know that they're supposed to, or we start talking about things like title, all of a sudden the idea that we would be able to have these insights in what is called a distributed ledger and an immutable ledger really start to make sense, because we know that mistakes happen, and we see, I mean, title's built on finding mistakes and how things are recorded. Having technology that makes that more secure and easier to understand is a game changer in the industry. And that's probably what we're going to see down the line. Cryptocurrency, which is the money, right? The money that we have that can be used, that you can exchange for US dollars, you can exchange it for euros. That is built on blockchain. So you can have blockchain without cryptocurrency, but cryptocurrency has to have blockchain as the database that runs underneath it. So what's cryptocurrency? A digital or virtual currency or asset that runs on a blockchain. So some examples: Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin. And what it allows is a secure peer-to-peer, so me to Deborah transaction, without a need for a third party. If we agree and I'm sharing my information, I can send things, and I can send things so quickly, faster than Visa, faster than Swift. And you're able to do it internationally with somewhere between no and nominal fees. So what determines the value of a cryptocurrency? Well, as we've learned, the value of cryptocurrency can change very, very quickly. If you're on this today, it's because you're interested in this, which means that you've probably read at least one news article within the last 3 weeks about the significant changes that have happened. So cryptocurrency only maintains its value because we assign it value. And I'm going to use Bitcoin as an example, but this is interchangeable for any cryptocurrency. There's a finite number of Bitcoins that can be mined. There are still coins being mined, but the idea of it having value is that there is a limit to it. Just like anything else, you know, diamonds, gold, platinum, there's a finite amount. Well, what did we learn in the last few weeks? I believe the largest store of gold was found in Uganda, I think. All of a sudden, the value of gold has significantly changed. And that was something that we always depended upon. So cryptocurrency is no different than that. Now, we have seen, we live in Chicago, right? Beanie Babies were invented there. We've seen things create value and lose value so quickly. We've seen it happen with art. You know, everyone likes to talk about tulips in Holland. All of those things had value and then didn't have value. But the idea that something is finite means that you can use it as an exchange, just like we do coins and dollars. So 2008, there's this guy, Satoshi Nakamoto, publishes Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, and basically invents blockchain as a currency. So, and then 2009, Bitcoin is launched. The actual technology of blockchain itself had been around for a while, but this application of it and the idea that you could establish it as with value is much newer. 2010, the first Bitcoin transaction took place for 2 pizzas. Even with a significant drop, those are probably the 2 most expensive pizzas that have ever been sold. And then in 2017, the first property is sold for Bitcoin in Austin, Texas. Now there are over 18,000 coins built on the blockchain. If you know technology, have friends or can establish your own network, you can start to launch your own coin. And we're seeing that, right? We're hearing about city coins. We have companies issuing coins. There's people that are calling for NAR to issue a coin, right? Anybody can do it. It doesn't mean you could, it doesn't mean you should, and it doesn't mean that it's going to have value, because the value comes from the idea that everybody agrees on how much something is worth. The major players today, these have stayed pretty much the same, right? Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and Ripple. Ripple's being used by financial institutions because it's really, really fast. And Bitcoin, it certainly was the first with major traction, and it still has the highest value. So let's talk about volatility and risk, right? The changing buying power can happen so quickly. So I like to use this little 3-month window, because what's a 3-month window? Sounds like a 90-day close to me, right? So someone makes an offer and says they make it for, let's say, 10 Bitcoins. Well, 10 Bitcoins in June of 2017 was $630,000. 10 Bitcoins today is 200 grand. Those are two very different pieces of property. So I have a couple 3-month windows here that just I'd like you to look at. So if you made an offer in June and tried to close in August, you would have lost 36% of the value. If you did it in December and closed in March, 25% of the value. And if you made an offer on tax day and tried to close today, 50% of the value. Now, I'm not here to predict about what's going to go up and what's going to go down. So let me say that I'm not going to give insight into what I think the crypto market is going to do. I'm not here to give tax advice, and I'm not here to give legal advice. So I'm just here to give you information about how these things work, and what I know. So just keep that in mind, please, with your questions. I'm neither a lawyer nor an accountant. So, but as a realtor, you have to decide who's going to take that risk. Is it the buyer? Is it the seller, right? When are you going to draw that line in the sand, right? The lender is certainly not going to take it. They don't like to take any risk at all. And you as the agent absolutely shouldn't be doing that either. You need to protect yourself. So it's just something to keep in mind as you go through this, and someone comes to you and says, hey, I've got, I made all this money. I was an early adopter of Bitcoin. I mined all this stuff in my basement. I finally figured out my password. I know that I'm late. I still want to buy a house. How do I do that? So we're going to talk through what some of those options are. So 6 months ago, 9 months ago, the general infrastructure was not in place. The only way that this was really working was basically peer-to-peer, right? Deborah and I would agree that she was going to sell me her house for 30 Bitcoin, and we would just have to paper the heck out of it. The good news is in Illinois, everybody uses an attorney for closing. In Florida, nobody uses an attorney for closing. They look at you like you're crazy when you're like, I got to get a lawyer. So it just depends on the market, but there's always real estate attorneys, and lawyers are always willing to take your money and write a contract. So all of that has to be done. The title companies aren't really set up to take crypto either. So you really have to do that as a private cash transaction and, work through the recording and title yourself. So let's talk about how to do a transaction today. Today, there are a couple companies that will do that. So one of them is Guarantee Escrow, and another one is Millennial Title. Millennial Title is based in Tennessee. They're licensed in 23 states. So there's 3 different ways to do that. So one is crypto to cash, right? I have 30 Bitcoin. I'm going to convert that to $600,000, and I'm going to buy a house. Guarantee Escrow will work as a sub-escrow. Millennial Title is happy to do this, and they'll do the conversion. There's some problems with that. Again, I'm not an accountant, but that converting, the way the IRS sees cryptocurrency, they see it as property, and it would be considered a taxable event to convert it to US dollars and fiat currency. So what are some other options? A collateralized loan. It is exactly like it sounds. I have, we'll say, $1 million in Bitcoin. These companies, and this is a typo, it's Milo Credit, not Mile Credit. Thank you, autocorrect. Will loan you money and use your Bitcoin as a collateralized asset. Now, what they won't do is do a 1-to-1. Usually it's about a 2-to-1 or a 3-to-1. So with $1 million, I could borrow between 300 and 500,000. But you can have a margin call happen, which means if the value of your coin drops, which we have just seen on my last couple slides, they can call it and say that you need to start to make up some of that money very, very quickly. So with the market volatility right now, what really sounded like a panacea 3 months ago, all of a sudden there's risk here. And I believe Celsius is the one that is having some financial issues right now. So as I said, this is all moving very, very, very quickly. Okay, so what's the third option? Wallet to wallet, which is exactly like it sounds. It's a cash transaction. It's just a matter of it being different cash. So you do you need a third party title, you need an attorney, you still have to handle anti-money laundering laws and know your customer, because you are still liable for all the guidelines that you are familiar with to protect yourself and protect your buyer and seller. Oop, went too fast. Okay. So escrow process, so that's no loan. So sometimes funds are exchanged outside of escrow. It's treated exactly like a cash transaction. The escrow company sends a link to a buyer, just like a wire transfer. And the city and transfer taxes are treated the same. Proof of funds can sometimes be tricky, but the process is getting easier. So people will send you like screenshots of wallets and things like that. Look, fraud is rampant. So you need to absolutely be doing diligence and then doing more diligence to make sure that you're protecting your seller. If you have a buyer who comes to you and says, hey, I want to buy that house. I know it doesn't say that you'll take Bitcoin for it, but I have some. Can we work through this? So, and there are escrow companies that are set up for crypto payment and work as a sub escrow. Okay, so crypto transaction. Crypto buyer calls you, says they would like to convert. You verify proof of funds and you put them in touch with a payment processor. The payment processors handle the know your customer and the wallet, and the offers accepted. The sub escrow with the payment card processor sends an invoice to the buyer, and the buyer sends crypto through the secure link. The payment processor converts it to cash. So there's still that cash conversion there, which means that there is a taxable event that will be there. Sub escrow wires the US dollars to the title company, and then it closes just like an old-fashioned cash transaction. Wallet to wallet. Okay. Realtor, you negotiates and signs a contract with a value in US dollars. So you have to, just like it's listed in the MLS, it's listed in the MLS for $500,000. The buyer makes an offer. The seller's probably got 18 offers because it's still 2022. The buyer says, okay, I'm going to accept this one, even though it's in Bitcoin. Now, what do you do? So all the vendor costs and payoffs must be sent to escrow in US dollars at closing. The buyer wires the US dollars that they have received to Millennial Title Escrow or another escrow that can handle this. And then a company like Encrypted Estates or Foreign Pay coordinate and confirm the crypto wallet deposit. The title work is then done, then the closing docs are done, and the disbursement ledger is done. It will settle then in crypto, but US dollars are what's recorded, and the buyer would receive crypto, but there's no conversion that actually happens. So Millennial Title kind of acts as a coordinating middleman for the wallet to wallet between the buyer and the seller. Document signing happens. The buyer initiates the payment to Millennial Title to get all the disbursements done. And then Millennial Title handles the vendors, the fees, the tax recording, and all of the other pieces. Okay, crypto lending workflow. This is much more like a traditional mortgage. So again, realtor negotiates and signs the contract, the values in US dollars. An account's opened up with Foreign Pay to set up an escrow deposit. So the escrow can be taken in Bitcoin or another cryptocurrency. Millennial Title runs the title work and prepares the title. So this is all very similar. But then the buyer goes to this crypto lender and works with them on this collateralized loan. So one of those loans that we talked about where they're holding money, they'll hold their crypto for them and loan against it as collateral. And then it works very similarly. Settlement happens, disbursements completed, deeds are recorded, and then the buyer secures the financing with one of those lenders, and the disbursements happen. Form 1098 is still done for the seller's proceeds, because that is still, unless they're exempt for primary residences and all those other things. So let's talk about some risks. You have to protect yourself and your clients, right? We've all heard terrible stories that have happened. We've heard terrible stories of wire fraud that have nothing to do with cryptocurrency, right? We've seen email fraud, text fraud. We've seen it come in through realtors, through attorneys, through closing offices, through banks. People come in and sit in the buyer's email or in the seller's email, and they just sit there and wait and know how to spoof it. If you haven't heard about any of those things, please go on nar.realtor. There's great information and great videos about how to protect yourself and the importance of data privacy and wire fraud. So here's one that happened a few years ago. Somebody posted on Twitter. For whatever reason, a lot of what happens with blockchain and Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies all happens on Twitter. It happens so quickly. It's public information. And people trust people on there for reasons that I do not understand. So someone said, hey, you can just buy this acre of land. I bought this plot of land. I'm going to divvy it up. Just give me half a Bitcoin. Email your name and you can buy it. Buy your own acreage today. And there were so many people who made all of this money, and it was money that wasn't very real to them. And there weren't a lot of places they could spend it in 2018 that they were like, hey, this actually sounds like a pretty good deal. And it's pretty exciting. And who doesn't want some land in Nevada? So they did it. And it was just totally fake, right? It was a giant, I don't even know if it was a Ponzi scheme, because I don't think there was anything to really start with. He was selling land he didn't even have. And so anything like this, where people are coming with crazy investments and things like that, you need to make sure that there are good things happening behind it. There are crypto exchanges where all of a sudden the CEO died and no one knew how to get into anything. We've heard stories of wallets, cold wallets going empty. We've heard people losing hardware wallets. Someone is suing the UK government right now because they want to excavate a garbage dump because they think they threw away one of their first wallets. I know people who have wallets that they can't remember the passwords of. Those are all real risks, and it all really comes down to just really good cybersecurity and good best practices, right? Use secure passwords, use a password manager that you know the password to. If you're doing cold storage on, a physical type token, make sure that you have it somewhere safe. You have it in a safe somewhere. It's fireproof. You're not going to accidentally throw it away. I'm not a big fan of writing passwords on paper, but doing a secondary storage somewhere of something like that, when it comes to something that's such a significant asset, you really want to be able to make sure that it's taken care of and secure. Yeah, people were guessing private keys and stealing money, and because cryptocurrency is on this public blockchain, seeing where the money goes and things like that all of a sudden becomes a lot easier, so they can see who's stolen things and how quickly things have been stolen. So how do you protect yourself and your clients? Well, hopefully if someone has come to you and they've made all this money, they know what they're doing. But just in case, you want to make sure they're using a reputable wallet. You want to remind them that it needs to be secure. You want to remind them to never share their private key, right? So the public key, think of it as this way. The public key is what I like to call your address, right? Like, I can give you the address of my house. The private key is the key that opens the door, or the code that opens my keypad. I don't give that to anybody or everybody. The public key just tells you how to get it there, and they can put stuff in, but the only person who can open it and get it out is me. And use a well-established marketplace. You don't want to use one that has just popped up. You don't want to use one that is not proven. So you want to work with trusted advisors when you're moving so much money. Okay, so what's the hot new thing everyone's talking about? NFTs, right? So we talked about blockchain, right? Blockchain's this database technology. Cryptocurrency is an application of the blockchain that is value in money, and NFTs are very similar. NFT stands for non-fungible token. So that means that it is unique and there's only one of it. Now, are there slight differences in NFTs? Sure, we see all those, goofy cartoons and stuff. Those are things that can be traded. Again, do they have value? Anything has value if you decide it has value. So blockchain, the encrypted digital ledger of the transaction. It's essentially a distributed database. Blockchain is, I know this is hard, a chain of blocks, and each block contains encrypted information that is being validated upon registering it on the chain. And the chain is always growing because no blocks are ever taken off. If a block has to get changed, a new piece is added to the chain, and it creates a record that cannot be changed. NFTs are unique and distinct digital assets, right? So it is a computerized picture. It is a video. It could be music. It could be a title, right? An electronic title. And it's stored on a blockchain, which is that digital ledger, but it can be sold and traded. And there's a database, a blockchain database that shows who the ownership is. And your NFT is the proof of your ownership. Whoever has possession of the NFT owns the property. And there are places that will allow you to borrow against an NFT. So how do they work? Again, it goes back to that public key, that address, just like the address of your house, and the private key that authorizes the change in ownership. And the blockchain itself is what shows the information about that token. So why NFTs? Why are we talking about this? Well, part of it is democratization, right? It makes something that's available to everybody where it wasn't just for the elite. So people have bought and sold art for a long time, but it was super expensive, hard to get into the market, et cetera. These are bought and sold on the internet. So they're available to everybody. They're digitized. So that means that they can be created quickly and moved very quickly. And this decentralization idea is that basically there's no authoritative source, right? We're all sharing information here. But along with that, there is risk. So if they're scarce, right? Every single one is unique. Some people are using them as a status symbol, right? People like to show off these little crazy art pieces that they have. And then it's speculation, right? I mean, as we go back to cryptocurrency itself, right? Beanie Babies, tulips, it's speculation of NFTs, right? We're making an assumption that something is going to acquire more value. So where else are we going to see it? So tokenization for liquidity, an investment is made via an NFT. So this is happening right now in commercial and residential real estate, where people are fractionalizing properties and using it to get liquidity out of it. So I may have an office building in Manhattan, and my family has owned it forever. It's worth, let's say, $60 million. Well, I can get liquidity out of that today. There's companies that do it on the blockchain and off the blockchain. What you want to use for how you do it, is it necessary to use blockchain for that? Well, no, people have been doing REITs forever. But doing it as a blockchain and being able to show that ownership via NFT, I think can make things easier. I think it does democratize it, and things will be able to move faster. Smart contracts on the blockchain, we're going to start to see those for title recording. So I don't know if you guys know this, but many of you are in Cook County, and Cook County did the first pilot of title on the blockchain. The deputy recorder is a gentleman named John Merkovic, and he saw the benefit of blockchain for title recording, because as realtors, everybody's heard a horror story of going to look up a title and there being a quitclaim deed that nobody knew about or something like that. And all of a sudden ownership in Cook County becomes really, really complicated because the underlying technology is not great. So he built this proof of concept where they were using blockchain to establish the database itself. And he did the project for a year. He wrote a really great white paper. But what the fundamentals of the white paper basically said is, listen, this is great technology. We should absolutely be doing this. But in 2016, there were not great tools. So it was very expensive and very complicated to work with. Well, 6 years later, the tools are easier. There are more people using it, which means that there are more programmers that are available to do it. However, you're really only going to get to that critical mass of the title companies wanting to use it if they're compelled to. And how do you compel anybody to do anything? They have to be able to find cost savings. You have to follow the money. I don't think that we're going to see this until banking starts requiring it, lending starts requiring it, Fannie and Freddie put a requirement in place, and or there is true cost efficiency that's happening. So it's going to cost, I'll pick a number, $5 million to do this massive conversion and implementation. They would have to be able to recoup that $5 million in technology costs and human resources costs over however long they need to amortize that for that to be able to make sense. Or they're compelled by banking so that people are able to get loans in Cook County, right? Or wherever this is. And Cook County, is one of the largest counties, has a lot of money and a lot of assets, right? Not every county is like that, right? Small counties in northern Wisconsin, Oneida County, they're still doing paper recording there, right? So there's places that are just not going to quite be able to make it there. And so, how is that going to happen? I think this is something that's going to happen over time. Another place we're going to see this is identity verification. I think identity on the blockchain makes so much sense. We have seen so many terrible things happen with cybersecurity. I always go back to the 2017 Experian hack. I was hacked, everybody was hacked, right? Like 30 million people in the US had their identities stolen, and they're all for sale on the internet. So I teach a whole other class on cybersecurity, but basically I can buy a passport with your name on it for $150. I can buy a driver's license for 20, and I can buy your social security number for 3, which means I can open a credit card and, get a small loan before you'll even know what happens. And by the time I think I'm going to get caught, I'm going to toss it and get another one. I am not doing any of those things, but that's the level of information that is out there and that's available. So I like to tell people, freeze your credit. It's absolutely worth the effort to do so. But having this secure and on a blockchain where it's immutable and information about you is immutable will make identity verification and identity security much more secure in the long run. I believe it'll be more secure than real ID. All right, this has been big news over the last 6 months. These homes sold as NFTs, right? So the first one in the US, there was one in the Ukraine, and then a condo in Tampa sold as an NFT. So let's talk through one of them. A couple of them. So on February 10th and April 15th, this company called Proppy, which is an NAR SCV company, facilitated the sale of the first real estate NFTs. They were listed in the MLS, Stellar MLS, one of the largest MLSs in the country. They're based in Orlando. They take up most of Florida. It's a very large regional. 5-bedroom, 3.5-bath house, was the single family home. They did it as an auction. I think this is very compelling. 2,000 people registered for this auction, 2 bids. I think it's marketing. I think that a lot of looky-loos, a lot of people wanted to see what happened. I think, they got a reasonable amount of money for it. But is this really how we're going to do things? So how those properties were actually sold is the property has to be held in an LLC. So an LLC is established. The only thing the LLC owns is that property. Proppy facilitates this transfer, and then the LLC is transferred to the new owner who has made the sale. So it's slightly different than what we talked through with those, other ways to do a crypto transaction. But the way that they're doing these with auctions, that's how they're handling it. They're doing it with an LLC. There's another great company called RealDAX. They also handle the know your customer and the anti-money laundering. They create that dedicated crypto wallet for the transaction and convert the funds to the desired currencies prior to the escrow deposits. Proppy, they do this as well. So can you do a crypto transaction today? Sure. There's people who are doing it. So in my research, I haven't found a lot of people doing this in Chicago. I taught a similar class on this at the Chicago Association, and everyone's super interested, super excited. But as far as I can tell, there aren't a lot of people who are doing this today. And if they're doing it very, very quietly. And maybe that's the case, right? We're Midwesterners. We do things quietly. In Miami, everybody publicizes everything. Not saying one's right or wrong, just very different cultures. So can you do it? Yes. Use a known exchange. You need to find really great partners, really great title companies, or a really great attorney. Contracts still have to be written in US dollars. That is not changing, an assignment for tax purposes. And always, 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 you should be using cybersecurity best practices. Okay. All right. So I know that was a lot of information. I want to make sure that you guys have time for questions. I'm interested if there's anybody on here who is doing this today. I would love to hear about it or hear about what you're seeing in your marketplace.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I mean, I work with NASBAR, so I'm not a realtor or a licensed realtor selling houses, but I am very familiar with crypto, and I know it's going to be big things in the future. But yeah, I began with crypto in 2009. Bought my first Bitcoin on eBay for $17.
Well, you did okay. You did
So,
okay.
that was,
unless you bought a pizza with it. Did you buy a pizza with it?
No, I ended up having 5 Bitcoins at one point, but sold them all when they hit about $1,000. So I was like, oh man, that was, but I was up, I don't know, 2,000%.
Yeah, yeah.
So
yeah.
to me, that was, but I'm heavily invested in Ethereum, and Ravencoin is another big one that I'm into. So,
Yep.
but yeah, NFTs though, I'm not a fan of at all.
So you're not a fan of them as a concept or as an investment? Because I think as a concept for them for showing information about things like properties, about showing information about things like ownership, I think that they're great. I think the idea that, you and I want to buy and sell cartoons that's
Right.
not how it's, it's like spending stuff in Minecraft. It doesn't make sense to me, but.
Right. It just doesn't make sense to me either that they're saying they have one digital copy, where if it's on the internet and you take a screenshot of it, you now have a digital copy. So.
Right. Well, so it goes back to that centralized database though, that still has information about who the actual owner is.
Right.
And as long as that is established on a central authority, even if it's decentralized, there's still that agreement of ownership and who has what. So I think as a concept for recording and sharing information, I think it's great. But, if you want to spend your money on cartoons that somebody can take a screenshot of, listen, I'm not going to begrudge you that, but it's
Well,
a
because I know
personal choice.
the music industry is now moving over to NFTs to put their music as digital NFTs, which to me makes no sense because all music is already digital.
And people are also doing it. So here's a really interesting use case outside of real estate. I'd love to see what's happening outside of real estate, because I think that, as we all have heard, right, real estate is not always the fastest to adopt new technology. So one interesting one is medical records. I think that that's a great application for blockchain and for NFTs. And having, again, an authoritative centralized source about what somebody's medications are and their medical history, because people doctor shop, right? And there's a lot of protection that's available there, both for the medical community and for the patient. In the entertainment side, what's happening now is they're selling NFTs of specific moments in sports games. So what if you could buy the NFT of Kerry Wood's 23K game? Wow. I mean, that's like mind blowing, and how you could trade on that. So, you could do it, based on, Steve Kerr's or John Paxson's last winning shots, right? I mean, there's lots of really cool things that ownership could happen there. Yeah, somebody's picking up some background noise. I think it's actually you, MC. I'm not sure. So yeah. So those are some applications that are starting to happen. And I think it's interesting, right? And it'll be interesting to see what rights people will have. If I buy that, what can I do with it? Can I print t-shirts with it? Can I offer viewings? Do I get licensing through YouTube every time somebody watches it? So it'll be interesting to see what starts to happen there and what some options are there. I saw a couple other pictures pop up. Does somebody else have other questions or something else they want to talk about?
I still don't understand. How are you this morning? You did a fantastic job in giving us all this wonderful information, but I still don't understand what an NFT is. Because I'm thinking that it was out there in cyberland where everybody's buying this fake land and start putting buildings on something. That's what I thought an NFT is. So apparently I have the wrong information.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's not. So I think you're thinking of the metaverse. So the metaverse is, it's a virtual land, right? So I don't know if you're familiar with a game called The Sims, right? Where you could build your own virtual land. The metaverse is a virtual land. And the way it's being marketed and sold is that you can interact with other people. You can be yourself. You can be some version of yourself. But they're also, the way land is being sold there, and I use the word land loosely, but space within there, a lot of people are looking at it as adjacency. So, the one that I keep hearing, and I'll use this example, is somebody bought the piece of property next to Snoop Dogg's property for $2 million, virtual land. Now, is that a good ad space? Because everyone's going to be going to Snoop's to see him and Martha hang out? Maybe, I don't know. I'm not a marketing person. I'm not somebody who knows about what's going to draw the kids in and things like that. But I mean, I can see the value there. I can see where if you want to do a launch of, whatever the next Yeezys are, that might be a good place to put up some sort of virtual billboard, put a QR code up there that people can start shopping through. I think if you want to capture eyeballs, there's going to be a lot of opportunity there. And that's basically what you're doing. It's no different than an ad buy on television, except that it is, can be established, or maybe you rent it out as like this digital billboard. So yeah, I think there's opportunity there. But so that's the metaverse, and that's that like kind of virtual land. An NFT is, so blockchain is a database. It's a piece of software. So it's an application of this little piece of software, this little piece of information. And it's this little piece of information that's unique. There's nothing else like it. And it can be an image. It could be a whole list of information about me personally. It could be Carrie Wood's 23K game. But there's a central authority that shares the information in a decentralized manner, so that if we're all members of this node, the four of us on this screen, we all have that information. And that information says, Liz owns this information. Liz owns the 23K game. And we all know that she is the only one who owns it. And if Jeff says he owns it, we look over here and say, nope, Liz owns it. And if Liz sells it to Jeff, there'll be another recording that says Liz sold it to Jeff, and now Jeff owns it. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes, that makes sense. I think the world is just going a little bit too fast for sister here. So
yeah. So what we've talked about today, you'll hear this in the news sometimes. They call it Web 3, right? So Web 1 was the first internet, right? It was NAR.com. It was your real estate brokerage.realtor, right? You put information on the internet, people could come and read it if they wanted to. Web 2.0 was that social piece, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Yelp. I put information out there to share. I go look up other information from other people, right? But there's a centralized place that's there and a single authority that has it. Yelp owns all the data in Yelp. Facebook owns all the data in Facebook. I guarantee nobody reads the terms and conditions of who can use it or when they can use it or who has permission to use it. And, we could talk another day about what Yelp does to small businesses. But I put the information there. Yelp decides who sees what, how it's prioritized, and what is out there, and how the businesses have to pay to use it. Web 3.0 decentralizes that, right? So I could put up a blockchain that is reviews of restaurants in Old Irving Park and let a decentralized people, everybody puts information up there, and we all have to come to agreement about how it's displayed and who can change it and who can't change it, right? And you can't actually change it, you can only add to it. And so it's this idea of sharedness as opposed to a centralized authority. Now, do there still have to be some established rules? Yes, and there's a whole other thing called DAOs that talk about how voting works and centralized rules. That's kind of like the 200 level version of this class. This is to give you the basics of how these things work and really how the application is working in real estate today. But you now have gotten a primer in Web3, an elementary idea of what Web3 is. So when you see it on the news next time, know that you know. And just because they give it a fancy name, it's still just a database.
Liz, I want to thank you. And that was the nicest thing you said to me all morning long. Just know that it's still just a database. So I'm not feeling like, oh, I have to go home and pull the covers over my head. Thank you. I appreciate that more than you know. Because after a while, you sort of, I'm Alessandra, I'm kind of going like, okay, this is a lot to observe. I took great notes, but I'm going to have to go back and read them some and do this. And think about this. I like that you use Beanie Babies too, because Beanie Babies came and they came and they went. And they had value for a minute and then they did it. I understood that. Got it. So thank you so much for doing this. I want to thank Jeff because he's the one that said you have to talk to this person. She knows stuff. And I do like the fact when people find people for me who know stuff. All of you who were here on the video today, thank you so much. We're going to have our marketing department put this together so you can see it again, because maybe I'll be watching it again because I might get smarter if I watched it again. Call me crazy. Some things need to see twice. And Liz, thank you so much for taking time, and especially because I know that you have a little bit of that awful stuff going on still, for taking the time to do this when you weren't feeling particularly well. Jeff, do you want to add something since you were the beginner of this?
Yeah, I do. Well, you know, I want to celebrate doing something right every once in a while, right? So, you know, it doesn't happen that often. But what I am going to say in all seriousness is that I try to listen to these kind of presentations regarding blockchain, crypto, et cetera, as much as I possibly can, in the hopes that someday it'll actually sink in and that I'll actually really start to feel, maybe that's the dangerous thing, once I start to feel like I actually understand it, that's probably a red flag. But boy, Liz, you do such a great job of explaining this in a way that dummies like me can understand it. So I really do appreciate that. And we look forward to, I'm going to impose upon you again, Liz, over and over again. Sorry, you know, you're going to be sorry you gave me your card. So
never. Yeah. So hopefully we can do this in person sometime. Really, really grateful for the opportunity. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you so much, Liz.
Thanks, Deborah.
Thank you so much, Liz.